This week on iFanboy, we've got Vertigo. Welcome to another episode of iFanboy, the video podcast from the comic book discussion site iFanboy.com. I'm Ron, and I'm here with Connor.
And I'm Josh. And we're going to talk about Vertigo. It's not really that... No, it is. We decided to talk about Vertigo Comics this week, which, the more we think about it, it's a really important force, but we're starting to wonder what's happening over there a little bit.
It's kind of a moment of transition for the imprint.
It feels like it.
A crossroads, if you will.
Yeah.
Are we good with analogies?
Sure.
Okay.
We're done.
All right, we're good.
Check.
Basically, just real quickly, in 1993, the line started. It was a place where they could take DC books that were more mature and they didn't have to worry about alienating parents and didn't have to have the Comics Code Authority on there and stuff like that.
And kind of separate from the whole kind of superhero universe.
Didn't start that way, though.
Right.
In Karen Berger, who's the head of Vertigo now, she was an editor at DC, and she was tending to do a lot of books that skewed towards mature readers.
A little off the beaten path.
And in the regular DC books, that was something you couldn't really do then. Was where stuff like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing and Grant Morrison's
Rick
Animal
Veitch's
Man,
Swamp Thing.
Rick Veitch.
More horror-y, more like...
Just things that explored tones, and they wanted to be able to go further than they were allowed to go. Sandman's another book. And a lot of books didn't start necessarily at Vertigo, but when they started it, a lot of things moved over there, and that gave them a whole lot of freedom. And then, basically, one of the things that we've noticed is that they put a different focus on the kind of comics that were being done.
If you look at the time period, 1993, when Vertigo was they established the imprint, it was the height of the image boom and the comics boom and the speculation boom, and it was like art, chromium covers, blah blah blah.
Todd McFarlane, Mark Silvestri.
Yeah, exactly, and Rob Liefeld, and Vertigo kind of took a different approach to it.
They went for stories and writers. They made the writers the superstars, which now. That's commonplace. That's the deal. Who's the biggest names in comics right now? You're going Joss Whedon, Brian Michael Bendis,
Brubaker, Vaughn. It's you don't even think of artists anymore, really.
It's not here and there, but the writers
rarely.
Even those writers, they don't even do books anymore.
Yeah.
Covers by Michael Turner. J. Scott Campbell does a cover.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And that's it. That's
a whole other phenomenon.
Like, as long as you've got capable artists, Michael Lark should be a superstar, but he's not.
Right.
Because he services the writer. Now, isn't that what they should do? It's almost like letters, really. Like they're there and they're good. They're still superstars. They're still John Cassaday or whatever. But I think you can draw a straight line from 1993 when Vertigo was started to a few years later, 96, 97, 98 when Palmiotti and Quesada started Marvel Knights, and they were like, well, let's put Kevin Smith on a book, and let's
98, 99.
Put Garth Ennis on a book.
Yeah.
Is that late?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. And then, as you know, Joe Quesada then went on to take charge of entire Marvel, and kind of Marvel Knights, that ethos went into the main books, and I think that was then taken over at DC, where they all started scrambling for exclusive creator writers, contracts and things like that. And the guys driving the boats now are not the editors. Bendis is the guy who's driving a lot of the boats at Marvel, and Mark Miller and Greg Rucka and all those people, Jeff Johns.
Yeah, he's totally driving.
And that sort of aspect can be traced back to where Vertigo started. And I think for me, that's around the time that I got back into comics. That's one of the things. The story is what gets me. I like art. I love good art, but if the story doesn't keep me, then the art isn't gonna matter to me.
Right. And that's a whole sea change in the fandom too. I mean, you tend to think of the comic book zombie fan who wants good art and good pencils, but you look online and discussion's always about the writer. That's always about the story.
It's about the story.
The whole sea change of philosophy is different.
How much can you talk about the art? Like, this panel was great. Like, it's not really. It's not. Art is really great to look at, but it's not necessarily usually food for thought, I suppose.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, in '93 at the time, art was really driving a lot
of
enthusiasm of the industry, and I think what we got now is we got more of an increased value in the writers and more of a balance. But Vertigo in '93 was highlighting the writing and the story, and while the art was important, it wasn't as much the focus at the time.
And the other thing about that is, if you look at the guys who were the names on those books back then, Grant Morrison, Garth Ennis, Neil Gaiman. What did those guys all
Matt
end up
Wagner.
doing? Matt Wagner. They all ended up in mainstream superhero books because they realized that those were the good ones. Brian Vaughan, he's the guy who made his name at Vertigo. and now he's given, so it's either like indie books or Vertigo. Another thing about Vertigo is it's a place where, none of those books have to be the common trope of what people think of as comic books. You can give a Vertigo book to anybody who has a preconception of what a comic book is, and you can surprise them that way.
Well, I think it's that whole idea of mature comics, and it's not mature like porn mature. It's mature like in terms of often realistic settings, or and like while there might be some fantastic things happening, be it in books of magic or some of the other books, or even Preacher, which is very steeped in reality, but there's a whole God war going on, stuff like that. But it's not it's not capes and tights.
No, it's fantasy, but they're based on...
It's adult themes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is funny, because when, I imagine that one of the things that must have been hardest for them was trying to escape, no, we're mature comics. Oh, so porno comics. No, they're mature, fucking, no,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I think they still... that's one of those things that they got to go for.
Well, so after a couple of years of it being in existence, I remember in the mid-90s, Vertigo really got this reputation of just kind of Vertigo. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be off the beaten path. It's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little weird. It's going to, and...
Go ahead, use the biggest buzzword ever. Well, edgy.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't even going to go edgy. But, and it was interesting to see how they got there by just kind of these titles that really didn't exist anywhere else in the industry. And to this day don't exist anywhere in the industry.
Well, there was people pushing on the edges of what they could do with DC, and those things went over there. And originally, the DC and Vertigo worlds were kind of intermixed, and then that broke away.
Yeah, they don't. Even Vertigo books don't take place in DC.
They're not canon.
There are issues of Sandman with the Justice League.
Yeah, and Animal Man also.
Animal,
Well, then Animal Man is.
It was in the Justice League.
Right, but then they moved to Vertigo and they severed those ties and kind of moved on. The other titles have not been.
Yeah. So what is it that makes a Vertigo book then? What is it like? There's a certain quality that a book has to be a Vertigo book. It doesn't make it an indie book. It's not an indie book. It's a Vertigo book. What is that quality?
That's the job of the editors there, and it's because it's this.
Right, but what do you think?
No, what I'm saying is it's this ungraspable thing that it's hard to describe, but that's one of the things they have. And I think that one of the things that's interesting is that they're sort of, I don't want to say they're losing their way, but for a while, this would have been in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were just hitting it out of the park over and over and over again. You had books, you had Preacher, and you had Why the Last Man came out in that time, Transmetropolitan was going that way.
100 Bullets in the beginning.
100 Bullets, and now...
Isn't that the cachet it used to have, Vertigo?
Seem to.
It doesn't carry as much.
Fables is got to be, Why's ending, and Why was a huge book for them, obviously. Fables is not a new kid in the block anymore. Fables is 50 issues in.
It's been around for a while.
And, what's going to take over for there?
Because there's always been that one flagship title of Vertigo. It seems as if when it started, it was Swamp Thing, and then that whole Sandman thing happened in the mid '90s with Neil Gaiman's classic run, and sold lots of Cure records and lots of black clothes,
and black lip,
and eyeliner, and then nail polish.
Only one of us is wearing black right now.
I'm not even going to say what I was going to say because it's on my shirt. And then from after Sandman ended, Preacher became the kind of the mainstream, the main title, the flagship title. And in the recent years, it's been kind of like a bouncing between Why the Last Man and 100 Bullets.
And
Transmetropolitan for a little while held the title. So now, but we're at a point where the end is in sight for Why the Last Man. It's about a little less than a year before Why the Last Man ends. 100 Bullets is coming up on ending right soon. It's going to hit the 100th issue and end.
But even that book has just so dropped away from being an important book. It was in the beginning and not anymore.
Yeah. I dropped 100 Bullets. I don't know if it got bad.
Tell us a lot.
Maybe it's I read it for 50-something issues, and I didn't know what was happening anymore. Maybe it's one of those things that reads better in trades.
Right. So then the question becomes, what's the new book you're going to think of when you think Vertigo?
I mean, right now, I think that the book that's going to be carrying the reins for a while, because he's not planning on stopping anytime, is Fables.
Yeah.
Fables is going to go for a long time. As long as he wants to keep doing it, I don't see his market drying up anytime soon. He hasn't lost any steam. Other than that,
is there any planned end inside? Because I know how Vaughn has always said that there's an end for Why the Last Man. Is there an end for Fables? Or
lest I be confused, as the person from the podcast, I don't really know a ton about. I just read the book. I don't go on Fables message boards. I don't own any. I don't own any T-shirts.
You don't own any plush dolls.
I just know that I think it's an ongoing for now. Like all good writers, I tend to think they know how it's going to end. But a
lot of the big mysteries have been revealed now. I mean, we know, and I only know from what I've read online and stuff like that.
Don't say it.
But yeah, we know who the big adversary was, and we know who, like that kind, that, from what I understand.
So, can a book that's already 50 issues in become a new flagship? Does that work?
I think so.
It's new. I think it is the flagship over there right now.
I don't think it's. I think Why the Last Man is the flagship book.
Yeah.
I think Why the Last Man is a really good book for people who didn't read comics. Whereas Fables is a book for people who did read comics for a long time and wanted something new.
No,
I think Fables is only the flagship for people who really, really love Fables. Every other person in the comic industry thinks of Why the Last Man. I think of Vertigo.
I think
it's
every other person.
Every other. I've asked them. I've got a poll. It's over here somewhere.
Well, no, but for example, at the DC booth at the New York Comic,
it's all about
the Vertigo logo, and it was a big thing in New York.
Yeah, but watch when Bill Willingham shows up and see if like the lines for him and the lines for Vaughn as writers are both. I bet they're fairly similar. I bet if you look at their sales chart, they both are carrying the weight of the whole thing. Why is good?
We've done that actually. I did that. It's why that's the top seller.
Well, Y trades sell a ton. Don't
they?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, DMZ is a great book.
That's a young upstart, if you ask me. I mean,
but I don't think it's.
You don't think it's going to lead?
I think it's a.
It's too niche.
I don't know. I think Brian Wood doesn't
not be
have
epic
a wide
enough.
screen, like he doesn't have wide enough appeal. Like the people who love that are really going to love that.
But it's steeped in the present. It's political.
It's a great book.
It's getting a lot of press. It was in the New York Times. It's getting. I mean, like it was. I mean, it has potential. It's going to be an ongoing. As far as I know, there's no end in sight. It's so. I mean, it's obviously carrying. Kind of allegories or kind of comparisons to what's going on in the political climate in the world now, but taking place in New York.
It's not. But it's not. It's been around for a couple of years now.
It's been around 13, 14 issues. Yeah, it's been a little year and a half.
I think it's gonna keep speed with what it's doing. I don't think it's.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
It's not going to be a phenomena.
Really?
And I think that some of the other books are phenomenal. And like they need another thing for a phenomena. They have. What do they have out now? They had Lucifer for a while, which was really good. And it was almost a really big deal, and the people who read it loved it, but it didn't quite catch on. But they finished it. It's 75 issues.
American Virgin, right?
Some people like it.
Exterminators.
Exterminators.
And that's a book that's been around for a couple of years.
Yeah. No, I mean I don't think any of these books. That's what I mean is that Vertigo doesn't hold a cachet now.
It's that je ne sais quoi. Yeah, exactly. Je ne sais fucking quoi. That's something that you can't describe. That made what made Preacher so must read. And does DMZ? Because honestly, I mean, I read the first trade of Fables, and I'm gonna try to read more, whatever. But I didn't get that. Oh my god, I need the next book.
Yeah, but other people do.
Right? No, I know that. But the thing is that very few people didn't get that from Preacher. Like Preacher is a must read. If you're a comic fan, whether you're a Vertigo fan or not, if you haven't read Preacher, that's the one that oh my god, you need to read Preacher, right? Yeah. And some because say SANDMAN as well. Mm-hmm. What is it that little bit of Vertigo magic that Why the Last Man has? And that do any of these? Why doesn't Fables have it? Why doesn't DMZ have it? Why could they have it?
I disagree when you say Fables doesn't have it. It does.
Okay.
You have an opinion about that, but I don't think it's shared by a majority.
But sales.
Sale-wise, Why the Last Man outsells Fables.
That's fine, but it's not. It's not like Fables is the little book that could.
No, I'm saying that we are acknowledging that Fables is going to be the flagship book. That's why
shows always turn into this.
Because Fables fans are very prickly, and you were very prickly about Fables. Fables is going to be the sales and flagship book. We're saying right now it's not, but it will be. And we're wondering why there's no other books that aren't even close to it. Yeah. That's the thing, because you'd have Preacher, you'd have multiple books, 100 bullets, and you'd have 3 or 4 really big books. So now why don't you have that now? Is the question.
Funny is
you can't pare down on your Vertigo books.
Because I'm not interested anymore. Right. I'm not interested in that.
Because you give every Vertigo book a shot, almost everyone. You'll pick up at least the first issue.
You guys picked up Scalped.
I picked up Scalped. I picked up The Other Side. Those
Other Side. That's right. Other Side.
2 books from Jason Aaron.
Yeah.
And neither of them really spoke to me because it felt to me like it was a guy doing a Brian Azzarello impersonation.
So here's the question: has Vertigo been around so long that now all they're getting is people trying to repeat old Vertigo books? Has the newness worn off?
And that's what it felt like a little bit to me. And that's when I saw The Exterminators and I saw Scalped. I thought, this feels like somebody trying to do a Vertigo book.
That could mean it's just been around too long as a cultural touchstone. It's just repeating.
Only a few years ago, I wouldn't have said that Why the Last Man felt like a Vertigo book, but it fit in there. It was a new thing, and what they need is somebody to do a new thing.
Because the thing is that as long as Vertigo's been around, there have been titles that have bubbled under the radar that I know none of us read. I mean, I meant to read The Invisibles, but I
tried to read The Invisibles.
Yeah, and there's wasn't The Filth Vertigo? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the crazy great
issue of that.
I read 2 or 3.
I recently heard that I was on a podcast. Brian Bendis was saying that's his favorite Grant Morrison work, and I was like, What did I miss?
Yeah, but
Beautiful Chris Weston art. I'll give it that.
but there's always those kind of titles that are keeping the line going or whatever. And the thing is that not every title is going to be a hit. Not every title is going to be a Preacher. Not every title is going to be a Sandman. And it's that capturing that magic that probably like we don't know what's going to be the next one.
It's funny because all those guys, every one of them who did the books at Vertigo, they get snatched up by the superhero guys.
Yeah. That's
And
for them.
like-
I guess they get paid.
Yeah, and then in some cases they go further. Brian Vaughan, well, he ends up writing for TV.
Right.
Neil Gaiman, I'm doing novels. I don't want to, he's
Right.
not.
But then someone like Brian Vaughan does Private Baghdad, which is his only original graphic novel, and he did it through the Vertigo imprint.
Yeah,
he could have done
he
that
still
through.
will, and those people will always
Yeah.
come. But that's not. That's a hugely important work. It's not Preacher. It's not going to
Right,
be
but do you think Vertigo is going to move in more of those original graphic novel direction?
I think they've always been doing
ongoing?
Yeah.
They've always been doing those all along. There've been minis. There've been.
Yeah.
Garth Ennis is allowed to go there and do whatever he wants. I'm sure Grant
Right.
Morrison, it's the same sort of open door policy he did.
Were those War Stories Vertigo books?
Yeah, those are war stories. Grant Morrison has done We Three, which was a Vertigo, and Vimanaranamamana. You know that book?
I don't even know that's English.
Yeah, it was some.
Was it really called?
It was like Vina Moran. It was about Indian culture. I'll put it up here.
I think the guys who come up in Vertigo are really stay loyal to it for their whole career. They always want to come back and do, because there's that. I think even if it's not with the fans, with the creators, there's always that cachet of Vertigo.
Sure.
Yeah, but also not. I mean, as many creators as there is that cachet Vertigo, there are also I get a sense of creators that just that aren't impressed by it. You know what I mean?
No, the guys who come up in it.
Yeah, who come
the
up
guys
in
who come in.
it,
That's what I'm saying. They always have that. For them, there's that cachet.
Well, the
of
other
Vertigo.
thing is this, and this is important, is that there isn't another place like Vertigo even now. You can go ahead and you can push it. Wait, though, you can put your book through Image
or Dark Horse,
or Dark Horse, and you can own it, but they're not connected to Warner Brothers,
right?
Because
It's from a big company,
from a big company standpoint, they also are not going to have the money for distribution, for marketing, and then getting all those.
But they're not, as we found out with the Warren Ellis issue of Hellblazer that didn't get printed.
there are limits.
There are limits.
There
So it's not totally as freewheeling as it might.
But that was a special case right after a school
They've
shoot.
still pushed the limits on what I mean. I've read a lot of Vertigo books and read Preacher. It's not like they're going through that and going, this is inappropriate. This is inappropriate. That's not happening.
Right? Didn't Paul Levitz hate Preacher?
Probably.
Yeah, but he hates.
Yeah.
The thing is,
He knows which side his bread is buttered on.
there's nowhere to go where you can do your own work with the freedom that it allows and still get major company publicity and money behind it. There's
Production
nowhere
behind
else
it,
for that.
Beautiful books. There's a trade program, and that's really important.
That's a big part.
That's become a business model for a lot of the industry, is that we'll do our issues and that's fine, but after that we're going to put them in these trade books where they will live forever in the book market, at bookstores, as opposed to the direct market. And that is something huge that, again, Vertigo did, and it has rubbed off on the.
They definitely led the way in terms of the establishing the trade, and look at what Marvel's done with their trade program and stuff like that. And it's
I feel like Joe Quesada just cribbed from whatever Karen Berger was doing and applied it to superheroes.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's a good theory.
Speaking of that, then
He's a smarty.
Then Marvel did the Max line and the Icon line.
Yeah, I wouldn't lump. The Icon line is more creator owned.
I feel like the Icon line is a place where they marked off a little yard in the back for their favorite people to go play in.
Yeah.
It's more like an incentive to. Brubaker can come sign with us, and then you can have your thing.
Exactly. But the Max line was a direct attempt, I think, to try to not simulate, but what was going on with Vertigo, and more mature titles you could curse.
The difference was they placed it squarely in the Marvel universe.
Exactly.
They didn't try to separate it. They said, "Here's Spider-Man." Not Spider-Man, but here's
Nick Fury with
he's
some
saying
horrors
fuck,
and and
Captain America was a Max book for a little
Alias was a Max
Or
book.
was it a Marvel Knights book?
No, Marvel
Take it
Knights
back.
book. Yeah.
Alias was a Max book.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
And
there
Alias
was
is why did that work? Now, it was in the Marvel universe, but it was it had nothing to do with it.
It was like nothing else that was being.
That felt kind of like a Vertigo book.
Yeah,
It did, and that's the kind of thing.
But it was steeped in the universe, which is the
It
difference.
just seems like Marvel, while taking on those other things, they don't want to do another area. They don't want books that are Marvel that aren't related to the Marvel universe.
But here we are, 5 years after the Max line at Marvel started, and there's the two books.
There's nothing left.
There's the JMS's stupid Squadron Supreme.
The other day we were at the comic store and there was a Max section, and we just went.
And it's it's Garth Ennis's Punisher and the Squadron Supreme
I can't
stuff.
believe that's still going.
No, Squadron Supreme is not Max anymore. They took it out of Max. Supreme Power is just regular.
So Max is not really.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So the question is why
did Vertigo matter?
No, but why would Marvel? I guess why do they only publish books related to the Marvel Universe is the question.
They're going further. They're going to do those Classic Illustrated. They're doing Dark Tower. They're trying to get out of it, but
I don't think they're trying that hard though.
no, because what do they do best?
Right.
You do what you do best.
I don't blame him for that.
No.
And the thing is, I wouldn't want Marvel to do a Vertigo. I would want Marvel to do something unique to their own, which is fine, and let Vertigo respect what Vertigo's doing, and and they'll do what they're going to do.
So, I think we're wrapping this up, but before we go, I have a little gift for Ron.
Oh yeah, really?
I don't know if you've noticed, but
I think it's a pony.
he's got a little aversion to some of the Vertigo books. And maybe you have a preconceived notion from your past.
A little bit.
right,
A little bit of the goth kids rubbed off on me the wrong way. And
You know what?
Nice.
This is your challenge.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
This has been talked mightily on the boards
you
about
go.
my aversion to Sandman.
Here you go. Enjoy.
That's Sandman for you.
It's like I didn't even do the reading in college. What did you do? We're gonna do this reading.
It's real good.
That's like a year's worth of
I
reading.
can just see you. Not quite getting
Oh look,
it.
Fables. It's just all retreads. That's all it is.
I will. Yeah.
Crap.
Oh no preconceived notions going into that.
Exactly.
Oh, Hob Gadling. Love him.
God.
All right, so in
Turn on
about a year and a half, come back and check and see if you finished them.
All right, I will.
You're just going to be like, no, I didn't like them.
I will take. Yeah.
You didn't read them, did you?
Yeah, no, this one, thing happened. Yeah, that was no good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see what you mean by the darkness.
It's like me in English class in high school.
And the drama. I really I felt the emotion.
In this one, you can fuck a sausage beast, though.
Oh boy.
So if you have any thoughts about Vertigo, or if we're totally off base or whatever, you can shoot us an email, contact@iFanboy.
I'm sure we're gonna get emails from this
Yeah,
one.
bring it on. Bring it on.
If you want,
Sorry.
It's Vertigo. It's okay.
if you want to yell at us in person like that, not in person, but with your voice, you can call us 1-888-FANBOYS. In person, we're
This is Daryl.
1-888-FANBOYS, which is 326-2697, and you can tell us how awful and stupid we are.
You can write in via the email to contact@ifanboy.com.
He did that 2 seconds ago.
It's okay. But if you want to come to iFanboy.com and you can talk about this episode on the post, or you can talk about some of the other discussions around the forums.
You can call in and leave a voicemail. Oh, sorry.
Did you have a blackout?
I must have.
Where am I?
This week we're talking about Vertigo, which is a great imprint from DC. Who are you guys?
Just do the shit.
It's like a Vertigo ending.
Deja vu, the strange sensation you're doing something you've done before.